Hi guys, tonight we are going to get cozy with a good book. The results are in and we are reading Small Steps. So thank you to those of you that voted. 47% of you wanted to hear Small Steps. So we're going to start there. I'm going to read to you from one of my favorite spots to read at home, which is my little reading corner over here. I know you can only see a part of it because you're propped up right now on my land shark stuffed animal. So he is being my video recorder at the moment. But my other favorite place to read is outside on the porch. Obviously, if it's nice out. Right now, it's a little bit too late to be sitting out there, so I'm doing some reading before bed, which is also a good time to read. It helps exercise your brain so that it's ready to turn off to go to sleep. But it's important to have a place in your house that you really love to sit and read. So whether it's a reading corner like I'm in, or whether it's outside on your porch, or in your bed, your couch, wherever you'd like, on the floor, whatever makes you comfortable to sit down and be able to focus and get into a good book. So we are going to start today with Small Steps, The Year I Got Polio by Peg Carrot. I'm going to start with the prologue, which is the beginning, or before the story starts, to give you a little bit of background information. Before a polio vaccine was developed, polio killed or crippled thousands of people each year. A president of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, got polio as a young father. He spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair, using hip-high leg braces and a cane when he needed to stand to make a speech. Children, however, are more likely to get polio than adults are. It is a highly contagious disease, and in 1949, there were 42,033 cases reported in the United States. There was only one case diagnosed that year in Austin, Minnesota. A 12-year-old girl, you'll still hear my mistakes real time. A 12-year-old girl, Peg Schultz, me. The disease's full name is poliomyelitis or infantile paralysis, but it is usually called polio. The polio virus attacks the nerve cells which control the muscles of the body. If damage to the nerve cells is slight, the muscle weakness will be temporary. If the virus kills many nerve cells, paralysis will be extensive and possibly permanent. There's no cure for polio. There is no miraculous medicines to stop the damage to nerve cells or repair those already damaged. When I began to write about my polio days, long-forgotten memories bubbled to the surface. I was astonished by the intense emotions these memories brought with them. Those months, more than any other time of my life, molded my personality. Since I have no transcript of these events, the dialogue is not strictly accurate, but the people mentioned are all real people. The incidents all happened, and the voices are as close to reality as I can make them. Although I used fictional techniques to write this book, I can verify my feelings about everything that happened, and feelings are the most important part of any story. One of the reasons I wanted to read this book to you guys right now is because obviously with what we are going through right now, the reason we're not in class together and we're having to stay away from the people that we love just to keep everybody safe can be a pretty scary time. And so just to think about why we're doing that and how similar things have happened. Never have I heard of experiences like this with everyone on quarantine, but remember this is taking place in the 40s, so in 1949. So it was a different time then, but they're talking about, again, this is a highly contagious virus that was going around and causing people to be paralyzed, or even some people were killed. But nowadays, this is not to scare you. Polio is not a threat we're experiencing now. They have developed a vaccine, but just to kind of make you aware that these things happen and we have to come together to be able to problem solve them. So think about that as we're reading, because I'm going to be asking you questions, maybe about comparing and contrasting. I might be asking about themes and feelings as we're reading. So kind of make sure you're paying attention to the content of what you're listening to in the story. I'll try to keep it short, each section, so that we can kind of dissect it a little bit, so we can really get to see if we can see from her perspective and what it was like to be 12 years old and sick and scared, and just sympathize or empathize with that a little bit. Chapter 1 is the diagnosis. My ordeal began on a Friday early in September. In school that morning, I glanced at the clock often, eager for the homecoming parade at 4 o'clock. As a 7th grader, it was my first chance to take part in the homecoming fun. For a week, my friends and I had spent every spare moment working on the 7th grade float, and we were sure it would win first prize. My last class before lunch was chorus. I loved to sing, and we were practicing a song whose lyrics are in the inscription on the Statue of Liberty. Usually the words, "Give me your tired, you're poor," brought goosebumps to my arms, but on homecoming day, I was distracted by a twitching muscle in my left thigh. As I sang, a section of my blue skirt popped up and down as if jumping beans lived in my leg. I pressed my hands against my thigh, trying to make the muscle be still, but it leaped and jerked beneath my fingers. I stretched my leg forward and rotated the ankle. Twitch, twitch. Next, I tightened my leg for a few seconds and then relaxed them. Nothing helped. The bell rang. When I started toward my locker, my legs buckled as if I had nothing but cotton inside my skin. I collapsed, scattering my books on the floor. Someone yelled, "Peg fainted!" But I knew I had not fainted because my eyes stayed open and I was conscious. I sat on the floor for a moment while my classmates collected my books. "Are you all right?" my friend Karen asked as she helped me stand up. "Yeah, I don't know what happened." "You look pale." "I'm fine," I insisted, really. I put my books in my locker and went home for lunch as I did every day. 2 days earlier, I had gotten a sore throat and headache. Now I also felt weak and my back hurt. What rotten timing, I thought, to get sick on homecoming day. Although my legs felt wobbly, I walked the 12 blocks home. I didn't tell my mother about the fall or about my headache and other problems because I knew she would make me stay home. I didn't want to miss that parade. I was glad to sit down to eat lunch. Maybe, I thought, I should not have stayed up so late the night before. Or maybe I'm just hungry. As soon as I eat, I won't feel so weak. When I reached for my glass of milk, my hand shook so hard I couldn't pick up the glass. I grasped it with both hands. They trembled so badly the milk sloshed all over the side. Excuse me. Mother put her hand on my forehead. "You feel hot," she said. "You're going straight to bed." It was a relief to lie down. I wondered why my back hurt. I hadn't lifted anything heavy. I couldn't imagine why I was so tired either. I felt as if I had not slept in days. I fell asleep right away and woke 3 hours later with a stiff neck. My back hurt even more than it had earlier, and now my legs ached as well. Several times I had painful muscle spasms in my legs and toes. The muscles tightened until my knees bent and my toes curled, and I was unable to straighten my legs or toes until the spasms gradually passed. I looked at the clock. The homecoming parade started in 15 minutes. "I want to go to the parade," I said. Mother stuck a thermometer in my mouth and said 102 and called the doctor. The 7th grade float would have to win first place without me. I went back to sleep. Dr. Wright came, took my temperature, listened to my breathing, and talked with Mother. Mother sponged my forehead with a cold cloth. I dozed, woke, and slept again. At midnight, I began to vomit. Mother and Dad helped me to the bathroom. We all assumed I had the flu. Dr. Wright returned before breakfast the next morning and took my temperature again. "Still 102, he said. He helped me sit up with my feet dangling over the side of the bed. He tapped my knees with his rubber mallet. This was supposed to make my legs jerk. They didn't. They hung limp and unresponsive. I was too woozy from pain and fever to care. He ran his fingernail across the bottom of my foot from the heel to the toes. It felt awful, but I couldn't pull my foot away. He did the same thing on the other foot with the same effect. I wished he would leave me alone so I could sleep. "I need to do a spinal tap on her," he told my parents. "Can you take her to the hospital right away?" Dad helped me out of bed. I was too sick to get dressed. At the hospital, I lay on my side while Dr. Wright inserted a needle into my spinal column and withdrew some fluid. Although it didn't take long, it was painful. The laboratory analyzed the fluid immediately. When Dr. Wright got the results, he asked my parents to go to another room. While I dosed again, he told them the diagnosis, and they returned alone to tell me. Mother took my hand. "You have polio," Dad said, as he stroked my hair back from my forehead. "You will need to go to a special hospital for polio patients in Minneapolis." Polio? Panic shot through me and I began to cry. I had seen Life magazines of polio patients in wheelchairs or wearing heavy iron leg braces. Each year, the March of Dimes, which raised money to aid polio patients and fund research, printed a poster featuring a child in a wheelchair or wearing leg braces or using walking sticks. The posters hung in stores, schools, and libraries, frequent reminders of the terrible and lasting effects of polio. Everyone was afraid of polio. Since the epidemics usually happened in warm weather, children were kept away from swimming pools and other crowded public places every summer because their parents didn't want them exposed to the virus. How could I have polio? I didn't know anyone who had the disease. Where did this virus come from? How did it get in my body? I didn't want to have polio. I didn't want to leave my family and go to a hospital 100 miles from home. As we drove home to pack, I sat slumped in the back seat. How long will I have to stay in that hospital? I asked. Until you're well, Mother said. I caught the look of dread and uncertainty that passed between my parents. It might be weeks or months or even years before I came home. It might be never. People sometimes died from polio. That fear, unspoken, settled over us like a blanket, smothering further conversation. When we got home, I was not allowed to leave the car, not even to say goodbye to Grandpa, who lived with us, or to BJ, my dog. We could not take the chance of spreading the deadly virus. Our orders were strict. I must contaminate no one. Karen called, Mother said when she returned to the suitcase. The 7th grade float won second prize. I was too sick and frightened to care. Grandpa waved at me through the car window. Tears glistened on his cheeks. I had never seen my grandfather cry. Later that morning, I walked into the isolation ward of the Sheltering Arms Hospital in Minneapolis and went to a bed in a private room. No one was allowed in except the doctors and nurses, and they wore masks. My parents stood outside on the grass, waving bravely and blowing kisses through the window. Exhausted, feverish, and scared, I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was paralyzed. We're going to stop there for tonight. We'll revisit this tomorrow. I want you to think about that ending of that chapter. When I woke up, I was paralyzed. And for those of us who don't know what the word paralyzed means, that means that she was unable to move. Okay, so you could be paralyzed where you can't move your arms, you can't move your legs. It's not necessarily your whole body, but sometimes if it's from your neck down, then that means you can't move your arms or your legs. So we're going to have to read to find out what happens to her and what her journey is. Thank you for tuning in.